Talking about Star Wars: A New Hope, the book, not the movie. Did I just hold this up the whole time? Well, Star Wars: A New Hope is a book. It says it's by George Lucas, but it's actually by. It says on the first page in a letter written by George Lucas. It was actually written by Alan Dean Foster. You can also remember because he writes the direct sequel, Splinter in the Mind's Eye. Alan Dean Foster. This book actually came out before Empire Strikes Back, but so I don't know. So it's probably not canon as well. Whatever. To me, it's all canon. Do I have to explain the plot? I mean, I feel like everyone knows it. I mean, it says on the first page that it's based on George Lucas's screenplay. It was a very late draft of the script, but wasn't how the movie ended up. It still starts exactly the same. It follows R2-D2 and C-3PO as they escape from the Empire onto Tatooine, where Luke then acquires them, and the Empire hunts them down and kills Luke's aunt and uncle, which causes him to go with Obi-Wan Kenobi to get Han Solo for a ship off the planet, get captured by the Death Star, where Princess Leia just happens to be kept, and they rescue her, and then they blow up the Death Star, more or less. So it follows the movie pretty well. It's really obvious that this is based on a screenplay. It's something that I didn't notice at first, because the first couple chapters, I would say, are written just like a normal book. Fun fact, that this actually came out before the movie by almost a year, and truthfully, if I had read this book before seeing the movie, I might not have seen the movie. I mean, the movie came out long before I was born, so that wasn't really a possibility, but I'm just saying, had it been 1976 and I bought this in like an airport or something, I would have thought it was fine, but it wouldn't have made me be like, oh, this could be its own cinematic universe, or make this whole like over 500 books based on this one book, you know, because it's like, oh, it's missing something. You can tell it's based on a screenplay, because when you write a screenplay, you want to show everything basically, or put it in dialogue. It's either exposition or you're showing exactly what you're talking about. You know, you can't do it any other way. But in books, you have things like internal dialogue, which sometimes is in movies when there's voiceovers, but if you've seen Star Wars, it doesn't happen unless you include Ben Kenobi talking to Luke after he's dead. And much like a screenplay, this doesn't have like hardly any internal dialogue. And that's a problem for a book. You know, you don't want to just show things. You want to be involved with your characters. And like, especially when it's like Luke, like we never see what Luke is thinking, you know, throughout the whole thing. We like see the actions he takes, and we can kind of deduce our own things like you would for a movie. But in a book, it's just wrong. It's not how books are written. You need that to fully flesh out the characters. And when you don't do that, it's missing something, and that's what this book is missing throughout almost all of it, and except for like the first two chapters, you know, where we kind of see how C-3PO is thinking throughout that whole escape from the rebel ship. And in the second chapter, we do get to see some of what Luke is thinking as he watches the starfight in the sky. But after that, it's basically just telling us what happens, you know? And, like, there's other things. I mean, like, the writer's obviously very good at describing things. Like, he can set a scene very well, you know, and, like, tell you everything in that scene, like, very well. And, like, also kind of describe, like, there's one part in a later chapter that's not in the movie where he, like, really describes this old Jedi temple that they end up going to, which is where the rebel base is located. And that's something we don't get from the film. But without any internal dialogue or internal monologue, I mean, it just doesn't feel like a complete book. And that's too bad, because this is technically the start of the Star Wars universe, because it came out before the movie. There's a lot of things that I feel are different from the movie. A lot of it has to do with characterization. You know, and I'm not going to say it's like really good or bad either way. It's just different. Like Darth Vader, he feels more like a posh British type during the Revolutionary War or something than he does like he does in the movie. Han Solo feels more like a mercenary throughout it. He does rescue him at the end still, but he still feels like, you know, probably going to stab you in the back if it suits me. C-3PO I thought was kind of just wrong, and like for the most part it feels like he doesn't like R2 throughout the majority of the book. There's only like a few points when it like you get the sense of like you do in the movie that they slowly become like good friends throughout the film, because there's only internal dialogue in the first couple chapters. You only see his thought process when he's really annoyed at R2. And after that, it's just like, well, I guess they're friends now. You know, it just kind of happens. And like at the end, you know, he still has that line where it's,
You can repair him, can't you?
We'll get to work on him right away.
You must repair him. Sir, if any of my circuits or gears will help, I'll gladly donate them. He'll be...
There's one area where I feel it's actually an improvement from the film. It's like a very minor thing, unfortunately, but it's the character of Biggs, who is Luke's friend. There's like a scene early on where Luke and Biggs are talking in a bar, and Biggs explains to Luke that he's going to join the rebellion, and Luke is like worried, and he feels like he's going to be left alone there. And then later on, you know, he comes and reunites with Biggs later on, right before the attack on the Death Star. And in the movie, you know, it's just like, oh, Biggs, and now Biggs is dead, and that's it. You know, here that's like a real moment for Luke. It's like his best friend has just been killed. And there's like kind of some hope, you know. I actually had some hope that he might live in this version. But yeah, that doesn't happen. Just because he has a lot more characterization, you really get a sense of who he is just from these brief moments in the book. And I actually kind of feel you get more of a sense who Biggs is than you do who Luke is, because you don't ever get that internal dialogue or monologue, I mean. And so Luke kind of just feels like a passive observer, you know, to all this, or we're just passively observing him at least. And like, even though he's like the hero of the day, and originally it was called Star Wars From the Adventures of Luke Skywalker. I mean, if I picked up that novel, and like, I would expect like Luke to be the main character, you know, and he is still, but it's like we're just watching him as he goes through this, and we don't actually experience the things he's experiencing like you would, say, reading Harry Potter. You know, like reading Harry Potter, you know how he's feeling at any given moment throughout the whole series. Here, the only time I know when he's feeling is when he's talking to Biggs. Is when Biggs is interacting with him. That's the only time like real emotion kind of comes through. And I guess there's a scene where I think the scene's in the movie too. It's been a while since I've seen it, actually. So I should probably do that next. Where Luke's kind of pining for Leia just a little bit, and Han notices and kind of says something to make him jealous, and like,
a princess and a guy like me? No.
So you kind of, there's like that bit. Outside of those just few brief moments, he doesn't feel like a main character. He just feels like he's just there. As for if I would recommend it, I would probably just say watch the movie, truthfully. I would say, you know, you don't have to read this unless you're like a really big fan. Other than that, I mean, I wouldn't. I would say just watch the movie. It is obvious that Alan Dean Foster is a good writer, but I feel like he maybe stuck too closely to the screenplay when he was writing this, or maybe he was just worried that if he wrote these characters the way he wanted them to, it wouldn't, because the movie wasn't out yet, it wouldn't have translated the same way, or he would have gotten it wrong or something. Either way, I hope his sequel is better than this was. It was okay, but the movie's a much better experience, I think. Outside of the parts with Biggs, a 6 out of 10 is what I would rate it. Maybe it was okay, but the movie was better, and it was too different from the movie, I think, to really like recommend it over the movie, you know, or even like even if you were a fan of the movie, just to like just say, yeah, you can pass by this. Just watch the movie. The movie's great. This is like a cheap knockoff, you know.